This is a 2x anamorphic lens on the Sony a7C II 16:9 full frame sensor. And this is a 1.33x anamorphic on the same Sony a7C II 16:9 full frame sensor. You can see the 2x anamorphic lens has all that classic anamorphic character that we all love from some of our favorite Hollywood films. But to get that final traditional Hollywood anamorphic crop, we have to crop the sides off of our full frame 16:9 sensor, turning it into a Super 35 just to work with 2x anamorphic. Now, using 1.33x anamorphics is our only solution to be able to utilize the full 16:9 full frame sensor without having to do any of that crop. Usually the downside to using 1.33x anamorphics is we don't get anywhere near that traditional Hollywood 2x anamorphic look that we all love. While the new Blazar Mantis 1.33x anamorphics are the first ever anamorphic lenses to include an oval iris and some other possible trickery. Can we go deeper? I don't know about some of y'all, but I think we can. All right, guys, these are truly one of the most innovative lenses that we've gotten in years, and it's still affordable. And yes, it's made by Blazar. A quick disclosure, I know half you guys hate that I do this. Yes, Blazar gave me these lenses. No, they're not paying me to shill for them right now. These are truly incredible lenses. Now, let's talk about why I am so freaking pumped for this new series called the Blazar Mantis Full Frame 1.33x Anamorphics. All right, guys, let's go over what's so special and unique about these. Traditionally, when somebody hears 1.33x anamorphic, we're kind of like, because you don't get much character on there. Most of the cameras don't have open gate. They only have 16:9. So when you put like a 1.5x or 2x anamorphic on there, it kind of overstretches it and you're losing resolution on all aspects because you're having to crop the sides off, especially when you're using 2x anamorphics. So when it comes to 1.33x anamorphics on a 16:9 traditional sensor, you're getting way closer to that traditional 2:3:5 final aspect ratio. So you don't have to stress as much about having open gate. The downside with that though is traditionally, once again, 1.33x anamorphics don't really have that much character to them. You don't get as much as that bokeh, you don't get as much of the distortion, even the flares sometimes are kind of a little bit more subtle. So this is what these new Blazar Mantis are pretty much murdering. No longer are we going to be saying, oh, 1.33x doesn't have anamorphic character. Blazar is basically doing some magic trickery into this that doesn't require software, none of that. It all comes down to lens design. Let's talk about it. Let me try to explain this as simple as possible. First off, yes, these are 1.33x. So when you slap them on your camera, you're only going to get a 1.33x. Well, not exactly a 1.33x. It's a little bit different. We'll go over that later in the segment. It's really important, actually, if you are going to purchase this. It's information you really need to know. More importantly, the aperture blades on here are in shape of an oval insert. Now, this isn't the first time someone has done this. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. You know, there are other lenses out there where if you put an oval insert into the rear of the lens or the center of the lens, when your lens is wide open, it can help get you a little bit more anamorphic bokeh. You can even do that on a spherical lens. But the issue with that, once you close down that lens, you lose all of that anamorphic character. So Blazar has a fix for that. The actual aperture blades are an oval no matter what stop you're at. So for instance, when you go from T2 all the way down to T22, that aperture is still an oval. So what that's going to give you is all that bokeh that you're getting in the background. It's going to have more of a 2x bokeh look. Now, is that all they're doing? I don't think so, but I don't have information on it, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But I think possibly the optical design is also doing some trickery to do that. Now, let's get into the image quality, the sharpness, the character, the flares, the distortion, all of that. Let's get into it. So I brought a number of cameras. I have two Lumixes with me that have full frame open gate. And I also brought my Sony a7C II. None of Sony cameras can do open gate. None of Nikon's cameras can do open gate, full frame open gate. There are some Fuji cameras that do a cropped APS-C open gate, not full frame. That's the big difference, especially when it comes to aNaMoRpHics. So Lumix is the only company that's offering full frame, open gate, and hybrid mirrorless cameras. If you are someone that's stuck with the 16:9 sensor, like in this A7C II or any Sony camera, any Nikon, blah, 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 you guys are gonna see what's so special about the new Mantis line. So some of the lenses we're gonna go over, I have an Atlas Mercury 42mm, I have a Blazar Catos 55mm, we have the Viltrox Epic 35mm, we have a Laowa Nanomorph Zoom 28 to 55mm. Obviously this isn't as fair because this is a zoom. Rest of these are primes, but this is just to show you guys the character that you're gonna get out of here. The bokeh on this Nanomorph Zoom is pretty similar to their the primes that they have. And also this is a Super 35 lens where the rest of these can cover full frame and even large format for some of them. So for all these lenses, I'm just gonna put them all to T2.8. But some of these lenses, like the Catos 55mm, can go all the way to T2. I'll show you real quick. If I go all the way to T2, you can see how much freaking bokeh we have on here. But again, just to keep it fair, we're gonna keep everything at T2.8. So the first issue with using a 2x aNaMoRpHiC on a 16:9 full frame sensor, the image becomes incredibly hard to see on the back of your monitor. So then you have to go get an external monitor and probably like a 7-inch one just to see that thin slice of image. So again, you can imagine if you go to 1.5x, you're gonna get a little bit of a thicker image. If you go 1.33x, you're gonna get even of a thicker image. So already you guys are starting to see the kind of the issues that comes in when you wanna use 2x aNaMoRpHics to get all that beautiful character, but on a 16:9 sensor. It's really difficult to work with. Personally, I fucking hate using 2x aNaMoRpHics on 16:9 sensors like this. Now we're gonna throw on this Atlas Mercury 42mm. These Mercuries are literally one of my most favorite aNaMoRpHics out right now. Full frame coverage, whether 1.5x D-stretch, Atlas hands down has the best aNaMoRpHic flares out there on any of these modern aNaMoRpHic. This lens also has some of the best sharpness and overall just like the character, everything about it. I have zero complaints about these lenses personally. The only downside for some people is the price point. I think this lens goes for a little over $8,000, where that Blazar Catos, I think it goes for like $1,200 or $1,400. So now you're seeing a 1.5x aNaMoRpHic on a 16:9 full frame sensor. You can see the final D-stretch is a lot easier to utilize. This is gonna help you whether you are on location and filming, because again, you're having to stretch it less, and so you get a thicker image that you can monitor off of. Even in post, you know, you're gonna get more sharpness out of it, yada, yada, yada. You guys are getting the point. Now, this is the Laowa Nanomorph Zoom. This is a Super 35 coverage lens. So you can see I'm zoomed all the way into 55mm, but I could zoom all the way out to 28mm. What's special about this lens is it's parfocal. So as I zoom in and out, it's going to hold focus. Now, Laowa subscribes more to clean and clinical for the aNaMoRpHics. So you guys are seeing immediately, this does not have as much character on it. This goes even for their primes, though they now have large format coverage of their 1.5x aNaMoRpHics, and those I think have a tiny bit more juice to them. 1.5x kind of makes it a little bit easier to utilize on a 16:9 sensor. Definitely way more sharper than all the other lenses I just put on, even the $8,000 Atlas Mercury lens, but you're not getting as much character. So that's kind of thing with aNaMoRpHics. If you want sharper and more clinical, you're gonna start losing some of the flavor behind it. So we're gonna go straight to this Viltrox Epic 35mm aNaMoRpHic. So now that we have a 1.33x aNaMoRpHic, you guys can see how much more easier this is to manage to work with when it comes to a 16:9 full frame sensor. From the back of the screen, it looks way less distorted. So I don't even have the need to put an external monitor on here because, you know, I can still operate at 1.33 just fine. It's not distorting it too much. This lens is built for quality. And so you guys are going to see we have crazy sharpness on this, and Viltrox did something kind of magical. And you guys are going to see why this is important that I'm talking about it, because it's going to connect to the Mantis. So there's a bokeh mask inside of there. What is that? So we're wide open at T2 right now. So when we're wide open, there's a mask around the aperture blades that basically gives you more bokeh. Just imagine like a black piece of plastic or paper or something, and they cut an oval shape out of it. That's going to shape your bokeh into that same oval. The issue is with this design though, once I start closing down the lens, you start to lose that trick of cheating extra bokeh. And now all we have is 1.33x traditional looking bokeh. So now we're at T2.8, just like the rest of the lenses. And you guys are seeing, this is probably the least character filled lens out of all the other lenses. But this is great if you're somebody that's shooting like large format stuff and you need more higher image quality rather than character and juice. Now, let's put on the Mantis. Also, we're getting a beautiful spring storm here in California. I would say our spring storms are more equivalent to, you know, a Montana summer storm. All right, you guys are seeing it right now. This is the Blazar Mantis. We're at T2.8 right now. This is the 50 millimeter. This opens all the way up to T2. I'll show you guys that here in a second. You guys are seeing even at T2.8, we're getting almost just as much character as we did with the Catos 2X full frame aNaMoRpHiC. So again, as you guys just saw on that Viltrox Epic lens, you can cheat more aNaMoRpHiC bokeh out of it, but you have to stay wide open. Blazar made it to where no matter where you take your aperture, it's going to hold that bokeh mask in there. In fact, it's not even a bokeh mask. They actually shaped the aperture blades as an oval. So even though this is a 1.33x aNaMoRpHiC, as you close down that aperture, it stays an oval. This is genius. There's only one set of lenses out there in existence that I know that does this. And I think they're like over $100,000 or something like that. Like they're for Hollywood. I don't even think you could buy them. I think they're rental only plausibly. So this is what's so kind of game changing. Yes, I'm saying game changing and groundbreaking with this lens design is now we have 1.33x aNaMoRpHiC. As we just went through, no matter if you're using a 16:9 sensor, an open gate sensor, Super 35, full frame, whatever it is, you now have the flexibility of filming in 1.33x aNaMoRpHiC, which is going to make life easier in post and while filming. But on top of that, we're also getting all the extra juice and character that we're getting with the 2x aNaMoRpHics. We're getting the best of all the worlds of aNaMoRpHiC in this one lens here. This hasn't been done before.
Okay, let it be known. I'm working hard when I ain't on the phone. This ain't a home, this ain't a flow. Grind never stopping, I'm keeping it going.
Now, for anybody who's not used to filming aNaMoRpHics, you don't know what all the hype is about, let me just compare this to a standard spherical lens, just so you guys can maybe better understand what you're gonna get out of these lenses. Now, if you don't know anything about me, for over a decade, I've been doing like commercial fashion work for Western brands, mostly Western brands. There's actually been, I would say half it's been Western brands. The other half has been just weird things that people would like never guess that I was involved in. As aNaMoRpHics started to become more accessible, I started to use them in times that I shouldn't have been, especially as clients started to request more vertical content. aNaMoRpHic is not great for vertical content because traditionally aNaMoRpHics aren't the sharpest lenses out there. There's a little bit of distortion on them. And obviously you're stretching the image out. So you're having to crop in even more into the resolution that's already being distorted. So when it comes to open gate filmmaking with these new Mantises, we're getting a final 2:1 final crop ratio, which that's the crop ratio that I deliver to majority of my clients if the commercials weren't being broadcasted, if they're just going straight to social media. But all my YouTube content, everything I deliver in 2:1 for the most part. Sometimes I do a 2:3:5:1 final crop ratio if it's all aNaMoRpHic, but if it's a mix, I do 2:1. When you use 1.33x aNaMoRpHics on a 3x2 open gate sensor, you're gonna get that final 2:1 final crop ratio. So these lenses are a dream come true now because any of the commercial jobs that I do now take, I can actually use aNaMoRpHics on them and actually, you know, get my work to stand out a little bit. Obviously, if the job calls for it, even though in the past I've used aNaMoRpHics on jobs I shouldn't have, and it definitely was the wrong move, and it definitely affected the results that I had to deliver to the client. But now with this on a 3x2 open gate full frame sensor, I'm gonna be able to like actually use them on commercial shoots and still have my work stand out, you know, giving a little bit more of that more dreamy cinematic type feel and look behind of it. But anyways, let me show you guys the difference between what a spherical lens looks like and what these Mantises look like as well. So there we go. I'm on two different cameras, but they both have a 3x2 open gate. So we're filming an open gate right now. And you guys can see, let me step out so it focuses on the pole here. The spherical lens is at f2.8, 35 millimeters, and the Mantis is at T2 wide open as well at 35 millimeters. You're gonna see overall the spherical lens, this guy right here, it's gonna most likely have more sharpness. It's gonna look a little bit more flatter, less distortion. But then the Mantis, you're gonna see it's gonna have a little bit more juice and character and just magic to it. So that's kind of what you're getting out of this. So whether you're on a 3x2 sensor or even a 16:9 sensor, these Mantises are just going to give you a little bit extra special sauce to them. All right, let's go wide open on the Mantis 35mm. So this is the Mantis 35mm at T2. You guys can see already the character on this lens is absolutely gorgeous. So let's just see what this looks like. From all my experience, this is the best distortion control that they've done in a lens. Again, this is the type of stuff that you get out of a 1.33x aNaMoRpHiC. You get less distortion, you get more sharpness out of it. So it's kind of like a win-win when they're baking in some extra character in there. That was 35. Let's put the 50 on and see what we got here. Gonna be reminding you guys throughout this whole video, these are sample units. These are pre-production lenses here. Even like the Mantis logo, it's not centered. You know, some things can still change on here. Let me just do the panning here. Once again, from the back of the screen, I'm not seeing a whole lot of distortion on here. It's pretty damn well controlled. All right, now we're on the 75mm. We're wide open once again at T2. Let's just see what this distortion looks like. Not bad. I'm not really seeing much.
Just you wait to listen for the storm. Hear the difference in the wind. When dark clouds form and start to turn, I'll run again. Far away when the hurricane comes in. Well, I'm the only island in.
All right, guys, one last important bit that we really have to go over, and that is the squeeze ratio. So while these are being marketed as 1.33x aNaMoRpHics, that's not entirely accurate. And again, this is normal for a lot of aNaMoRpHics to not be precise on it. Even some of the high-end like vintage lenses, one, they have anamorphic mumps, which basically means as you change your focus, the stretch factor changes. We don't have that issue with this lens, thankfully. Thank God that they didn't do that. But with that said, let me show you guys a quick example. So what you guys are seeing right here, this is a straight out camera, just stretch. I have my LUTs on there. A quick note on my LUTs, you guys all love the Roadrunner LUTs I've done. When I have the Rambler LUTs, and they're basically made to mimic more of like a vintage film stock. So they're a little bit more muddy, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more faded. So let me just quickly run through these. These are for Lumix only. Throughout time, I'll update them for other camera systems. But here you can see this is the Rambler 1990. This is the 95. Then we have the Print, and then we have Print Pushed. Then we have Print Pull, and then we have the Millennium, which kind of takes away all the faded matteness and kind of gives you more of a traditional Rec 709, but with all the juice into there. So we'll just keep it on there for now, but I'll have a link down in the description if you guys want to check them out. Now, de-stretching in DaVinci is extremely easy. You just go to click attributes. From here, I'm just going to go to 1.33, and there we go. It's de-stretch. But you can see, let's just punch in here 100%. You can see we have a little bit more space on the top and the bottom compared to the left and the right. So after messing around a little bit with it, let me go back to clip attributes. This is what's amazing about DaVinci is I could go to custom and I could put in my own stretch factor. So I'm going to do 1.38, and you'll see that's a lot closer. So again, this isn't uncommon for aNaMoRpHiC lens to not be exactly what it says it is. There are scenarios where it's an issue for me, which is a very niche scenario, is I like streaming with aNaMorphics, of course. You guys know I love aNaMorphics, so why not stream an aNaMoRpHic? Currently, my main streaming camera is the Blackmagic Pixis. It has a 1.33x, and the next one up from that is 1.5. So there's no way to like custom tune it. So it would be cool if Blackmagic or Lumix gave us a way to custom tune the aNaMoRphic support in there. But I've also been talking to Ecamm to give us aNaMoRphic support, and I suggested put all the formats in there so people can easily click it, but also make a custom mode where we could put in our own, because I absolutely love streaming on the Mantis. Because again, after everything we went through, full frame 3x2 open gate gives you a final 2:1 deliverable, which is perfect for streaming. Outside of that, this is not an issue. Again, it's very common. When you're monitoring, you don't really notice it. But for everybody who's saying, oh, maybe that's like how they're getting more juice out of it. Maybe, I don't know, but 1.33 going into 1.38, I don't think that's a big enough leap for them to be like, you know, baking in 2x type bokeh into it. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Also guys, Sedona's always by my side. She's either out here hunting or she's out here watching guard for all the wildlife. Another exciting thing to these Blazar Mantises is they work on the DJI Ronin 4D. One of the first videos that I did when I first went full-time on YouTube was with the 4D 8K head and the Blazar Remus lenses. They don't balance perfectly, but they balance enough for the motors to hold it. All right, guys, so we're shooting a lot of content today, and we're gonna be using the Mantis for all of them. What's exciting about this is, you know, we still get our 2X Bokeh, but for instance, I'll show you inside real quick. The 48K only shoots in 17:9 and 16:9. So even though we're in 1.33x aNaMoRpHics, we're gonna get our traditional 2:3:5:1 crop. So we're not gonna have to do any funky business with this. But then on the S1R2, we're gonna be recording a 3x2 full frame open gate, and the lenses still cover that. What's unique about this is, you know, we are doing some commercial shots here, which a lot of the times for deliverables, you have to do 16:9. So with the S1R2, we'll still be able to get the aNaMoRpHiC look, but with the final like 2:1 crop, so it crops into the 16:9 very easily. So for commercial work, if you want some character, these are gonna be amazing. Again, the 2X Bokeh on there, but still, even if you're stuck with a 16:9 sensor, these are the same sensors in both of these cameras, I believe. Even though the S1R2 does open gate, the 4D 8K doesn't. But since it's 1.33x aNaMoRpHic, it's gonna be super easy to mess with and to mix up the shots and all this. So I know a lot of people think 1.33x is boring. Traditionally, it is, but since we're getting a little bit more character and 2X Bokeh out of here, it really, you know, heightens the look of everything. The big dilemma that this is solving, the DJI Ronin 4D 6K and the 8K head, this is the 8K head, DJI does not offer open gate filming on it. So using 1.5x aNaMoRpHics, you're getting more of an Ultra Panavision 70 type final crop, which is dope. It looks amazing, but it's really wide and you're still having to do that whole annoying crop thing. I'm sure everybody knows who Josh Yo from Make Art Now is. He's hacked his 4D a million different ways to get heavier lenses like the Catos on there. I will say the weight differences isn't huge between the Mantis and the Catos, but the big difference is the Catos are longer, and so they don't really work on the 4D at all. So let me just walk you guys through this and show you guys how well it works on the 4D. Maybe we'll film a little bit too. So we're gonna start with the 75mm. So again, this is the DJI 4D 8K head. You can tell by the red ring. For the PL adapter, I'm using the Nissi DX to PL adapter. This is pretty much the lightest PL adapter that you can get for the 4D. Let me just zoom in for you guys here. Obviously, I do have the counterweight on the back there, and let me loosen these up. You can see it's pushed all the way back. There's no more room to go back. You can see if I push forward, it's front heavy. If I go all the way back, it's still a little bit front heavy. It actually doesn't balance on it, but if I boot it up, the 4D motors are strong enough to hold it. This is the same scenario that we had with the Blazar Remus, but we were using those like crazy with minimum issues. Obviously, we did put it onto a truck for a couple of shots and it held up just fine, but I don't recommend that because you could damage your 4D easily. For this setup, I would keep it to more simple type stuff. You know, if you're gonna do anything like crazy action-packed, this is not the setup to be doing with this because you are pushing the motors on the 4D for this. So let me just engage the 4D and you guys will see it works. It's working on there, but let me run out here in the field a little bit. Maybe we'll just chase Sedona down and we'll see if it's actually going to work or not. If anybody saw, I did a light collab with GU, and the whole intro / commercial that we shot was mostly on the DJI 4D with the Blazar Mantis 35 and 50mm. I haven't gotten a chance to try the 75mm. We have full aNaMoRpHic support here, so I'm able to de-stretch. And again, there is no open gate, but now again, we have the 2X looking aNaMoRpHic, but with the 1.33x de-stretch. So with the 16:9 here on the DJI 4D, we now have the perfect combination of actual aNaMoRpHic character, but without having to, you know, figure out how to balance a larger 2X lens on there, or even a 1.5, having to crop sides off and yada, yada, yada. This is going to be a magic formula right here. Anyways, I'm gonna engage the 4D axis right here, and let's see what the 75mm looks like. I haven't tuned this one, so I can't use the autofocus, but when I put the Mantis 50mm on, I'll be able to use the autofocus on there, but let's just see what we got cooking here. Sedona, come here. I do have the lens wide open as well, but let's see if I can manually focus on her. You guys can see this is going to be freaking magical. This is how close we can actually get with the 75mm. She's on the hunt right now, so it's hard to get a smooth shot. Let's see if I can manually pull focus on her. But this is definitely hard to shoot 75. Let's try to do a push-in on her. Sedona, look. What's that? I promise, guys, I'm not out of shape. I'm just, it's the elevation. Oh, okay. Oh. All right, Let's put the 50 on. I need autofocus for this. So hopefully you guys could see this, but I already have the Mantis 50mm saved in here. And it's that easy. I can now use autofocus with the Mantis 50mm. I can now focus track you guys watching right now. And cool. I can also track her with the gimbal. Wherever I move, the gimbal will just stay on her. So I'm not even looking, and the 4D's focus tracking her and object tracking her. Now, just like with anything, you know, this is a lot of technology that still needs human input. It's not gonna do everything for you. Now we're tracking her, so I could just do a push in. Try not to cut my leg open on this barbed wire. I do have it in AMF mode, so basically, if I know the focus is about to jump, I can take over. And you can see the lens and the gimbal is pretty much doing everything. So the 4D with the Blazar Mantis 50mm, tracking you guys watching me right now. Let's try using my Bronco before the battery dies on this guy. Okay, we're tracking the Bronco. Now I can move a little bit faster here, and you guys can see how smooth this thing is. So when you actually have a good object to track, it does pretty amazing. Now, let me re-highlight it. Let's do a run in here. See that 4D working? And there we go. So you guys saw it there. The Blazar Mantises work on the DJI Ronin 4D. If you're doing action type stuff with the 4D, you can see when it's off, they don't balance perfectly on it, but the motors will hold them. So if you plan on buying the Blazar Mantis for your DJI 4D, because you get 2x type character with 1.33x D-stretch, so you could actually utilize the full sensor, just be aware, it's better for slower pace type stuff. I mean, you guys saw me running there. It still looked plenty smooth. So yeah, I'm out of breath. I think the town I live in is around 15 or 2,000 elevation. And right now I think we're around 7 or 8,000 elevation. We're literally on the top of the mountain. So, okay. That's the 4D in the Mantis. Oh, let's see if I could wrangle up my dog from hunting before we get attacked. She's supposed to be my guard dog. She's doing a bad job at it. For everybody else who's stuck with, 16:9 full frame or even crop sensors, 1.33x aNaMoRpHiCs are amazing, but when you use 1.33x aNaMoRpHiCs, they tend to not have nearly as much character as something like this. This is the Blazar Catos 2X aNaMoRpHiC. I think we can all agree, anybody who's getting to aNaMoRpHiC, we're getting into it because we want that look. We want that vintage, classic, aNaMoRpHiC, juicy type character. So again, let me try to concisely show you guys why these mantises are going to solve a ginormous dilemma that a lot of us have been having. So I put my Lumix S1R2 into 16:9 full frame mode. So what you guys are seeing is 2x aNaMoRpHiC on a 16:9 full frame sensor. With this setup, you get all the traditional aNaMoRpHiC juice and character, but the issue is 16:9 full frame sensors, the vertical height is almost the same as Super 35. And so when you go into post and you have to do your final crop, you're having to crop all these edges out. So with 16:9 full frame sensors, you're essentially shooting a Super 35 sensor because the 2X aNaMoRpHiCs is stretching it so far out, you're having to chop all the sides off for your traditional aNaMoRpHiC crops that you see when you go and watch movies and TV series and whatever it is being shot on aNaMoRpHiC. The other issue is too, with 2X aNaMoRpHiCs on 16:9 sensors, you can see how wide this image is. You can't really tell what the hell you're filming because it's just 2X is not great for 16:9 sensors. This is a headache. Even if you use a 5-inch external monitor, this is still really hard to see. This is why usually I've been using 7-inch monitors for aNaMoRpHiC filmmaking. But a lot of cameras like the Sony a7C II and pretty much all of Sony's line doesn't offer any aNaMoRpHiC support. They're slowly starting to roll some out, but it's not that great still. They're giving you like 1.33 and 2x D-stretch, but it takes away autofocus and all these different options and all these different resolutions and frame rates. I don't know why Sony did it like that. Who knows? But I'll show you guys right here what it looks like when you don't have D-stretch. You can see how squished that image is. You need an external monitor to use 2x aNaMoRpHiCs and even 1.5x aNaMoRpHiCs on a 16:9 sensor. Now again, obviously this doesn't apply to anybody who has access to open gates like I do on this camera, but again, this is an example. Now let me throw on the Mantis, because the Mantis is a 1.33x aNaMoRpHiC. This is the new lens. Now this is where the issue comes in, because even though 1.33x aNaMoRpHiCs work amazing for 16:9 sensors, you get nowhere close to that traditional aNaMoRpHiC look that we're all used to, like from this 2x aNaMoRpHiC. So immediately immediately when you hear 1.33x, you're like, I might as well just shoot spherical because there's not going to be that much character. The aperture blades inside are in the shape of an oval. So as you open and close the aperture, you're going to get some extra aNaMoRpHiC bokeh in the background. So as you guys are seeing, this 1.33x aNaMoRpHiC lens works amazing for 16:9 and also open gate. We'll go over that. But now we're getting 2x character out of it, but we're getting all the upsides to 1.33x aNaMoRpHics, which is sharpness, better distortion control, overall better contrast, the list goes on. We don't have like this little sliver of image that we have to try to monitor and see what we're doing. You can see how much of a thicker image that we're getting. It's just way easier to utilize 1.33x on 16:9. So I'm using a Lumix camera right now because we have actual full frame open gate modes on here. The only other cameras on the market that have actual full frame open gate are like the Blackmagic Pixis, the Sony Venice 2. Outside of that, I know there's gonna be commenters saying, oh, Fuji cameras have open gate. Yeah, but it's APS-C open gate. It's not even like a true film Super 35. So yes, they have open gate, but it's an APS-C, so it's incredibly cropped. When you crop in on aNaMoRpHics, you can get a little bit more sharpness out of it, but you're also losing a lot of the character, the traditional character of aNaMoRpHics, unless you're shooting like a Super 35 aNaMoRpHic, but these are full frame. So right now, I'm in the 16:9 mode. So majority of our mirrorless cameras, this is the mode that you're gonna have, especially on like Sony cameras, Nikon cameras, all of them. This is the mode. All right, guys, now I'm in the full frame 3:2 mode. And again, the 1.33x D-stretch is on. You can see we're basically getting a traditional 2:1 crop. Majority of my YouTube videos are set to a 2:1 crop because it's a little bit wider than your traditional 16:9, but you're still kind of filling out, you know, phone screens and televisions and everything. So this is why I've been using these even more than my Remus and my Catos, because now I can just record the full image, still get that 2x traditional aNaMoRpHiC look, but I'm getting that 2:1 crop. So I have so much room to play with. If I want to in post, I can just crop the top and bottoms to make it look like it was shot on a 16:9 sensor. But again, the important thing is you can see all that 2x bokeh from edge to edge is still there. All right, guys, I have zero clue if I'm in focus or not, but it's time to do our aNaMoRpHiC flare test. These are neutral flares. Once again, I'm depressed that they're neutral flares because I love blue flares. We're currently on the Mantis 35mm. We're wide open. The color balance on my flashlight is around 4,000. So you guys can see what this is doing. Let's now rim it from the top and the sides. You can see we're getting a little bit of an interesting flare there. Let's go around to our sides here. And there we go. So again, this is the 35mm. Let's go to the 50 so I can start ranting about how people ruin blue flares. Now we're on the Mantis 50mm. I personally absolutely love blue flares because majority of the classic aNaMoRpHic films that I grew up watching and that I still idolize to this day have blue flares. Now, when Star Trek came out and everybody started to bitch about aNaMoRpHic flares being overly used, which I thought it was fine in that film because it made sense, all of a sudden you started to have all these tube douchers saying, oh, blue flares are for sci-fi films only, while totally fucking ignoring the fact that all of those classic aNaMoRpHic films that aren't sci-fi have blue flares. But again, you have the dipshits of the internet creating a whole thing of people thinking blue flares are corny. No one was saying that in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, or the 2010s. So we could thank all those people that manufacturers are mainly only making neutral flares now. Let's do our edge test now. Let's start from here. Let's go up. Ooh, I like that. That little slight rainbowish type flare. It's not as strong as it is on the Remus B set. Let me rack focus real quick too. And there we go. I'm just looking for the back of the screen. I've had these lenses for like a month now, and I have not done a standard test like this. So this is interesting. I'm seeing a lot here. We got like a cool mix of like a bluish and orange type flare. I don't mind it actually. I know I was just bitching about only liking blue flares, but yeah, whatever they're doing on this, I'm digging it. All right, guys, now we're on the 75mm and I'm wide open just like I was on all the other lenses. I have zero clue if I'm in focus, but here we go. So this is 75mm test. Flares I have gotten from all the real life footage that I have been taking with these lenses, I don't mind them at all. I like them personally, but I have used Atlas Orions throughout my commercial career, and I have a set of the Mercuries Those still, hands down, have the best anamorphic flares out of any aNaMoRpHiC, but it is cool to see more of the affordable aNaMoRpHiCs being made, slowly getting better and better with their flares. aNaMoRpHiC flares tend to look better on tighter focal lengths, just because there's more compression. For some reason, how the elements fall together on a more tighter lens, they just look better. I mean, look at that. That is, I love that flare right there. That's gorgeous. I absolutely love that. Let's, there we go. Yeah, that's dope. I'm really liking the flares on the 75mm. All right, guys, we're wide open on the 35mm at T2. Let's see what our sun flares look like. There you go. Yeah, they're not too obnoxious on the 35. Pan test. So you can see it's definitely picking up some flares, but it's not obnoxious, which is good to know. Because now we're on the Mantis 50mm. We're wide open at T2 once again. And here's our sun flare test on the 50mm. Once again, it's not too obnoxious, which is good. Definitely get a little bit of a flare right there. Don't mind it, it's not horrible. A little bit right there. This is usually the times where I would use a matte box. Because that flare, I don't like that ghosting as much. But then intentional flaring, obviously like that, I don't mind. Let's do our pan test. Personally, I don't like to actually flare up my aNaMoRpHiCs too much. Definitely when I first got into aNaMoRpHiCs, I would do it a lot. And I feel like that's a bad habit that a lot of us fall into when we're, trying aNaMoRpHiCs out. But it's all in good fun and everything. All right, now we're on the 75mm. We're wide open. Let's grab focus here. So definitely already, there is some, you can see I'm putting my hand in front of the lens. You can see we do have some flaring already. Start down here. Let's tilt up. And there we go. There's our sun. Let's just keep going all the way up. Back down. So yeah, I would definitely use a matte box with these still. That's the type of flaring that I don't love. I'd rather keep my contrast. But that type of flaring isn't uncommon to even spherical lenses. So that's just where matte boxes come into play. But the flares look pretty consistent, honestly. While we're on the 75mm, I'm just gonna close down the aperture to see if closing it down gets rid of that flare. Not really. Yeah, so. Yeah, I'm at T8 there, and that flare is still there. Pre-orders open up on May 20th for the 35, 50, and 75mm. I do believe in the future there's going to be a 25mm and 100mm. But again, Blazar is a pretty small, nimble company, so that could change or that could be locked in. I have no clue. For pricing, it's going to be $999 per lens. But the super early bird price is going to be $799. And once those pre-orders open, I highly recommend to just order them if you can afford it, because you're gonna be able to save $200 per lens. And then the post pre-order sale price will be $899. I have no idea when that kicks in, but the final price, MSRP pricing, is going to be $999. This is pre-tariffs. I have no idea how the tariffs are going to affect any of this, but that's all I have so far. All right, guys, just to wrap this up, let's go over all the technical stuff that personally I never really care about. We have meters on this side. We have feet on this side for our focus gear right here. Aperture ring is also far in the back. Now, are these going to replace my Blazar Remus or Blazar Catos? Not exactly. I still use the Catos a ton, specifically with the Blackmagic Pixis, because there's a 6.5 mode, and there's more to come from you'll see, I can't say too much right now. But when it comes to more intentional filmmaking, like all my documentary work and like commercial work and all that, where I'm allowed to use aNaMoRpHiCs for those jobs, the Catos are still kind of my go-to, just because optically you're gonna get that 2x look. There's so much magic behind them. But with that said, with 1.3 3x optics, you know, we're gonna get a little bit more sharpness out of the lenses. We're gonna get a little bit less distortion. We're gonna get a little bit less funkiness. But at the same time, Blazar, the people who run Blazar have really amazing taste. That's all this comes down to. Trust me, any manufacturer can make any lens that we want. It all comes down to the people behind the scenes making the decisions. This is why I love the Blazar lens so much, because the taste that I have aligns similarly to what Blazar's taste is as well. So if you like cleaner lenses, if you like pin cushion lenses, go check out LUTS aNaMoRpHics. They have amazing quality on theirs. They're way more cleaner, way less of that character and juice behind them, but you're still getting a hint of that aNaMoRpHic charm. But for everything else, I'm very intentional with aNaMoRpHics, so I want that juice, I want that character. And Blazar's doing a really amazing job at finding the middle ground between those two.